right, well, it is just at the top of the hour, so I wanted to get us rolling today to talk about the WAV Group Customer Experience Index and the great ways that it can help you drive MLS success through really tracking what's going on with the customer experience in your market. So first, I'd like to welcome Dave Howe. Many of you probably, he goes without introduction, but he is the CEO and president of MetroList MLS in Sacramento. He was actually the board chair for the Council of MLS in 2021, has been involved with that organization for many years. He also is very active in a lot of industry leadership issues through the National Association of Realtors. He was on the statewide data sharing PAG, and he served, I think, for many years now, right, Dave, on the MLS Technology and Emerging Issues Advisory Board. So that's a mouthful. He does a lot. So welcome, Dave. Great to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Marilyn.
So I want to jump in first and just kind of, for those that aren't that familiar with this program, give you an update on kind of what it is. But the real meat of this is we want to talk to Dave about how do you use a program like this to help your MLS be stronger? That's the real story, right? So, WAV Group created the Customer Experience Index, and it was really because we've been doing market research like this for a long, long time, and I could start to see patterns from market to market, or I could see really interesting differences from market to market, but I couldn't tell anybody because it was only your market, right? So the idea was, can we set these standards for performance indicators that everybody can use so that we can, not in a localized way, but in an anonymized way, be able to track how are we doing? If I get an 88 in customer service, is that good or bad? No, I guess depending on how your mom graded you when you were a kid, right? So with this, you can really look at the differences and can really understand the areas where your organization is very strong and where it has opportunities to be better. The other thing that's happened that's really interesting is we've seen areas where every MLS in the group has been strong, and also areas where we think everybody can be better as well, right? So it can help not only an individual market, but it can really rise the tide of all the boats, as they say, right? So there's kind of 5 key components to this. The first is the practical and in-depth local insights, right? This is the heart and soul of this, is what are your customers saying? What do they like? What are they using? What are they not using? Why are they not using it? And what suggestions do they have to make the services stronger, right? So this is the heart and soul of this, that it's really important that you listen closely. In the cases, we're talking to agents and brokers and appraisers, because sometimes appraisers feel like they're left out sometimes, right? They think we don't pay enough attention to them. Then it has this whole peer-to-peer perspective I was mentioning, right? So you can get a benchmark of what's the average on a particular key performance indicator and how do you do relative to that market? And we'll look at that in a little while. And we've added some components too that we think are going to make it even better. There's really smart and progressive MLSs that have signed up for this, that want to be part of this, and that are very introspective and always trying to be better. And so we've started this. In fact, we just had one a couple of months ago where we can share best practices with one another, right? So if somebody's doing something really interesting, wouldn't it be great if others could learn from that? Because there is not one MLS in the country, or any organization for that matter, that has got it all figured out, right? And as soon as you think you do, the market shifts and you got to start all over again. So it's important. And then importantly, tracking your progress over year. We were talking on our prep call today that sometimes board decisions or conversations are driven more by emotion and anecdote than they are by actual data, right? And so when you have quantitative information, not only for 1 year, but for multiple years, and not only for one market, but for multiple markets, it provides a much more objective way to look at things that can make organizations stronger and really help make more sound decisions and really more informed decisions. And then fifth, and certainly not least, is it's really fun to brag once in a while. You guys work so darn hard. You just put your head down and keep doing it day after day after day after day after day. And of course, unfortunately, we hear usually more about the 2 people that are upset than the 25,000 that aren't, right? So this gives you a chance to, to step back and celebrate the areas that you've done really well and take credit for the good work that you do, because it's really hard to do that. So that's kind of the overview of the program. We've had over 250,000 agents have been through this, and we're looking for even more. We're trying to get to 75 markets this year. So the more markets we get, the more that we can do things like What are satisfaction scores for small, medium, and large MLSs? Is there a difference between West Coast and East Coast? Is there a difference between one system and another system, right? The more people we have, the more we can really start slicing and dicing in it. For those of you that know me, know I'm a data geek. I love that stuff. I think you're one of those too, aren't you, Dave?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we love the data.
Absolutely. So, the first thing is, that this whole idea of multiple market insights, we found a bunch of things. First, that training, is a key satisfaction driver and also a key engagement driver. Those that have participated more in training feel better about their MLS for obvious reasons, right? They now understand how to take more full value out of all of the, the money that they're providing. Brand awareness is super important. So sometimes MLSs are sort of hidden under the association name. They don't stand out as their own brand. We found out that when you do that, generally satisfaction's a little bit lower. So interesting to say, you got to kind of stand up and take credit for what you do, right? Technology adoption, not surprisingly, is concentrated among core products, but we're starting to find some of the clues. And as I say, try to crack that code on how do we get, I think the average of people in the market in the survey this year had 10 technologies, which is a whole lot more than we used to have in MLSs. So there's 2 or 3 that are obviously used very, very often. And then there's 7 that are still great, valuable products, but aren't yet getting that full leverage. So what can we do about that, right? And then one area that we saw that really everybody can improve on is the idea that at the end of the day, an MLS is a business partner to a broker, right? That's really its job, is not to be a broker. Clearly, there's a very specific line there. But what can we do to enable things, right? We have very fresh, very comprehensive, very accurate data. And what can that do to help a broker evaluate their business, promote their business, promote their listings, partner with other people around the country? There's so many things that can be done. So that's what's been really exciting, is being able to kind of really normalize that and see what happens when you look at multiple markets. So
Yeah,
just
Marilyn,
yeah.
if I could jump in there just really
Yeah.
quick. The business partner relationship has been one of the most overlooked, I believe, areas of importance for an MLS. And it does start with your brokers. They have to understand that you're partnering with them to make them successful. And it does extend out to the technology providers that we use. The things we hang on our Christmas tree that make our MLSs look good. And quite often those business partners are not treated like partners. And so one of the areas of focus that we concentrate on is to put an emphasis on the fact that we are in it together. We are mutually dependent on one another. And issues that I've seen is when that does not happen. The report does give us some reminders of areas that we can improve, which were appreciated. But I just wanted to jump in. That one is such a key element.
I totally agree with you on that. Absolutely. And, sometimes we complain, well, there's no innovation in an MLS system. And then we turn around and brag about the fact we just beat the crap out of a vendor and got 29 cents per member per month off of last year's contract.
Mm-hmm.
But every time we do that, to your point, we're not necessarily taking us into the place where we want to innovate and really continue to make technology stronger and stronger. So it's a very good point. So I'm going to just walk you quickly through some of the components of the report. And by the way, if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw a question up into the chat, and for either myself or Dave, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. So in the overall index has 8 different sections, about 30 pages of actionable insights, and of course, hundreds and in some cases, thousands, depending on how large your MLS is, of open-ended customer responses. And not only can the data, the quantitative information be super helpful, but sometimes those open-ended responses have gold in them. Even just one person says something and you or someone on your staff reads it and goes, it turns on a light bulb. It's like, wow, that is a big idea, right? Mm-hmm. So you never know. There's great ideas that can come from any one of your users and any one of the staff. So those have been particularly exciting to read through. And they also are really helpful at getting you kind of a tenor, right? We've worked with MLSs, luckily not lately, but in the past, that were not, their customers weren't super happy with them. And you could hear it, like literally hear it as you read through those. There was just a tone of there wasn't as much trust and as much, respect as there could have been. That's completely turned in those markets now, but you can see that, right? So it's interesting. Let's see, we just got a question that came in. Oh, sorry. Sheila said that the chat is disabled. So you should tell people to put questions in the Q&A. Thank you, Sheila. Please put the questions in the Q&A. Thank you for that. I did not know that. Okay, so if one of the first things that you see is a summary of all of the different KPIs that we measure. So we measure responsiveness, lead generation, overall customer service, training, technology, and data quality. So we basically walked around the organization and said, what are all the types of things that could be out there, right? So then we create industry averages, and then you can see how your market reflects compared to the industry average. So it gives you a really quick look at our strengths relative to our areas, as well as just in general, how do we look relative to what's going on in the other markets in the sample. And then, as we talked about, the local and in-depth recommendations is a really big part of this. And this is very much, us bringing you ideas, you bringing us ideas, and a real collaboration on what do we believe are the things that can really move the needle. A lot of that comes from what your customers tell us, right? Sometimes, though, it might be an idea, something proactive that we've seen happen in another market that we think could be great. And of course, all of you and your staffs can bring those great ideas to the table as well. So that's really important. And for those of you that have worked with us, I think you'd probably understand this. We're not going to bring you something that's terrific and it's going to cost you $5 million. Right. We understand the scope and the budget levels that MLSs have. So we're going to bring you things that sometimes don't cost anything. It's just time and energy. Sometimes it might cost you something, but it's never going to be, well, you should blow up the MLS and start all over and blah, 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 right? We're not doing that. We're in the context of, we understand the value proposition of an MLS and how do we continue to make it stronger. Okay. We have actually the chat is working now. Oh, I fixed the chat. Okay, chat's fixed now, so you can put it either place, whichever one works for you. Okay, so customer support. This, of course, is the biggest driver of satisfaction. And you can see this is an example of the report where here is what the average looks like, and then here is the example MLS, and then you can see how it flexes out for everyone else, right? So some of these groups sort of cluster and sort of good, better, best, right? So you can see where you fit within that. And if you're close to the average, way above it, and if you're really above at the top. One of the things I thought was very interesting we learned with this is that customer support was a much bigger driver of overall satisfaction than technology was. And especially, I think there's been a perception in our industry that the MLS system is really the driver of how good your organization is. And I would say that's really not true. We think next year we're going to look at actually a tenure, right? We think sometimes, as much as we hate to want to think about this, it could be that it's not the best system, it's the one they know, right? It's the system they've used for a long time. It's a system they've learned how to leverage for the kind of business that they do. So it's very interesting. We're also going to be adding this year to look at how often people engage with customer support and in what ways. Many of you now have phone and email and text and chat and a bunch of different things, right? So where are they calling you and how satisfied are they in the process? And this data can also be married for any of you that have sort of exit poll surveys. When someone calls in, you do a little quick survey. Sometimes people do it on a sampled basis of how good did we do? How can we be better? Those kinds of questions. This can be married with that too, which can be a great way to support that information. Then in customer support, we look at all different kinds of things about the factors and how they measure and how they feel about you in different levels of customer support. So lots of different things. So then in training, again, training leads to engagement and it leads to perceived value, right? The more that we can engage people and the more that we can engage them with training where they hear us. And what I mean by that is training that talks the realtor's language. It doesn't say, oh, you could use this technology, and it doesn't explain the how, it explains more the why, right? Agents are super busy, brokers are super busy. We need to find ways to help them be interested in the technology and the training by explaining to them how this training will help you do something that matters, right? Whether that be generate leads, cultivate leads, secure a new listing presentation, win a listing presentation, all of those different types of things, right? So the more that you can do that, we're going to be pulling on more of what are the types of topics that make sense and what are the kinds of ways to really get more people to be excited about coming to training and the formats and things like that. Okay, so in training, we look at everything from how, did they participate or not? What type of format did they look at? A whole bunch of different things, right? And again, we're going to be doing some more different things this year. And then we also look at, how satisfied are they with all the different factors within training? What we see a lot of times is that They really appreciate the trainers themselves. They feel like they're good teachers, but we aren't necessarily as an industry driving home the fact that MLSs can save you a bunch of money and can make you a bunch of money if you use them effectively, right? So there's room, I think, for us to, again, be more of that business partner that Dave was talking about earlier. And we also look at, for those that haven't attended, why haven't they attended? Where else have they gone? What are the reasons why they haven't come, right? So we can better understand the ones that we haven't captured yet. Why is that? And then in technology, of course, the heart of an MLS, right? We look at engagement with the technology, the satisfaction of the technology with MLS systems specifically. We go deeper and ask them about different components of the MLS systems, and that is such an important part. And then again, we're going to be adding that tenure to see if there's a correlation between the length of use and the satisfaction with the system. And of course, measuring which tools are being used and at what level. That's super important. And this data can be very helpful for overall marketing efforts, but it also can be used for segmentation, right? So if you said, I want to look at, the 20% of people that are or are not using a particular product, how do I engage them? For those that are using them, how do I engage them more deeply, right? So customer segmentation can key off of this. And one of the things, and Dave, you could talk to this too if you want, but if you're working on a project where you need this data in a more granular level to help make decisions or to get things organized, like, we are happy to pull that. This isn't an enterprise level survey tool that gives us lots of room to do regression analysis and all kinds of things if you want to get fancy with it. So we're happy to help you do that. Okay, and then we also, of course, measure satisfaction, and you can rank these. These are things too that you can be used to take back to your technology partners and say, hey, we've got great satisfaction with this, but there's something that's missing, right? So you can use this as a way to work with them to help them, again, not anecdotally, but quantitatively, to say, I think we can be better if we focus on this thing. And I'm not making that up because my customers are asking me to get that for them, right? Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, two things come to mind here, Marilyn, where we actually looked at that dot graph that you had up prior. You can actually see the level of usage of that product. And in MLS, we try different solutions. At MetroList, particularly, we don't have dozens and dozens and dozens of products. We kind of look at ourselves as a best of show. And as part of that, you have to analyze what's being used and what's not, and then really measure why that is. If there's a need for the product, but there's just not enough training, there's not enough support, maybe we need to put some resources over there to emphasize that a bit more. That's one. But the other is that it could help you make a decision on whether or not you want to continue with that product and ultimately jettison or find a suitable replacement. The other emphasis that this really kind of triggered in our leadership team is the need for an MLS, and MLSs really haven't been very good at this, is to spark a thought of analyzing big data in more meaningful ways. We have access to so much information, and then, working with the WAV group, we've discovered others that complement that desire to learn and step into an area which we haven't, in particular, have done as much as we could. So there's big data elements to information that we're gathering that we're not utilizing in ways that could benefit our brokers and stakeholders. And so it's really an area which caused us to take pause, specifically in that latter point, Marilyn, with some of this section on technology.
Yeah, David Gumper, one of our business partners, our technology lead in WAV Group, has done some really interesting work along those lines, Dave. So he's gotten data from MLSs where they'll provide, productivity per agent, brand they belong to, region they belong to, tenure, variety of different data points, and then marry that with what their technology usage patterns look like, right? It was very interesting. We saw, like, one brokerage, for example, looked like they were going much more aggressively on MLS training because they had much more usage than others did. Some tools were really positive, popular with higher producers. Some were more positive with lower producers, right? So there's a lot of ways to look at that. And all of those, to your point, can lead to much more targeted communications. So if you know the profile of someone that's a top producer that's, maybe hasn't engaged as much as you'd like, as an example, what can you talk to them about? How can you say, what does a top producer need that an MLS delivers how can we make it make sense for them, right? Because we know we have such a spectrum of needs and, and involvement and engagement and success that each of those different types of groups might need different things from us. But yeah, I'm here today at the Leading Real Estate Companies of the World Conference, and what I'm hearing a lot of is brokers, and you're probably hearing this too, Dave, are pulling back on technology, right? They're pulling back on a lot of things because their businesses are off 20, 40, 50% from where they were. And it's a perfect time for an MLS to go to a broker in that partnership that Dave described and say, hey, I know that you've got issues, you got cash flow challenges, whatever. Can I show you all the things that we offer, show you how we can brand those to your company and how you can make them your own? So it feels as though it's coming from your tech stack, but you're not paying for it, right?
Yeah, I would add to that is that I'll give an example. Websites with brokers, big brokers, obviously part of a tech fee for a company. Larger companies have more capabilities here, but they'll provide solutions within their office to attract and retain agents, right? And in many cases, they look as the association or the MLS as the great leveler, which has always kind of been kind of a traditional bugaboo, if you will. But really where we see it is that the brokers really have a need because they act in a particular way. And I'm just going to generalize, but they will dive into a technology, they'll invest heavily, and then what happens is the technology isn't kept up to date over maybe 3-4 years out. And then all of a sudden their competitor jumps out with something new and they come back in on a total full replacement because they haven't been able to keep up with the new technologies and such. So an MLS can position itself to step into an individual broker's office with a unique product for that broker and provide them that level of service. And then with the assurance, and it's a big lift. Not all of you might be able to do this, but the MLS could continue to monitor and watch features as they become available and offer those and enhance the product over time so that broker doesn't have to come out of pocket, millions, it's millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars for some when they do these total replacements when they find themselves behind the ball. So that's another business partnership illustration that MLSs can step into. I think there's great opportunity there, and you're illustrating that with the leading RE guys. They're saying that to you this week. So.
Absolutely, they are. Well, of course, the lawsuit announcement didn't help much, but they're a pretty nervous crowd at the moment.
A little less air in their tires, so that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let's go through. We'll keep going. So then, data quality. Obviously, the heart and soul of an MLS is the data it collects and curates and distributes, right? So wanting to understand the effectiveness of the rules and regs, the balance of enforcement between data quality versus being perceived as the police, right? Somewhere in that middle. So we can measure things like that. And now we're going to be looking at data feeds, how, data feed service, because as we know, and Dave, from emerging issues, brokers get concerned. They don't get the data feed service always that they're looking for. So this is something really important to measure because it's one of the things they really gauge MLS is about. And also, what can we do to help continue to improve data quality? Can we ask our customers, what do they think are the better ways to do that, right? We might come up with some really interesting ideas. Or we could just give it to ChatGPT and let it all take care of itself. Okay, so then responsiveness. So this one is much more of an overarching one, right? It's more of a general perception of, how well does the MLS and the leadership listen and respond to me? Do they care what I think? Are they nimble? Are they making changes to rules and regs as market, factors dictate, things like that? So it's a higher level one, but it really kind of measures their general belief system about, is my MLS there for me or not, right? So this one is super helpful. And again, it kind of, when we go and we do brainstorms with the staffs and the board of directors, these are the kinds of things that are interesting because every single department, every single person can somehow affect that score, right? Anybody that touches the customer in any way or supports people that touch the customer in any way can affect that. So this one is a great one to get the entire team involved to think about how can we change that. So we look at things like striving to continually improve. Are they helping me be successful? A whole variety of different components. And then looking at things like generally, again, this is a general perception, right? Of, is the company moving in the right direction? Some people don't know. And that's an opportunity in and of itself, because if they don't know what you're doing for them, then you got to tell them, right? Secondly, sometimes there's people, and you'll see a split in the market where some people think the group should be going one way and some think it needs to be going another way. That's a warning sign, right? We got to figure out, why is there a chasm in the way that people are looking at us, and get to the bottom of it. So these are great kind of things to share with the board, to say, hey, we might need to go deeper and better understand. And the good news with this is we could literally say to you, here's all the people that say you're going this way, and here's all the people saying you're going that way. And you could literally talk to them, right? You could recruit them into groups and ask them more detail about what they're saying and why they're saying it. So it can be very interesting. And then business generation. Dave talked a lot about this earlier, right? That, are we really business partners? Do people see us as business partners, or do they see us as long as the system is on, we're good, right? That is, treating us more like we're a utility as opposed to truly a business generation partner. And so we're measuring this. And frankly, this was the area that all MLSs have opportunities to become better at. Every single one in the group. Some were better than others, but frankly, nobody knocked it out of the park, right? So these are the kind of things we could all talk about. What can we do to have a more solid relationship and to truly take credit for everything we do? Because when you think about an MLS and how much business is created and nurtured through that trading platform that we create, it's significant, right? But we don't necessarily talk about ourselves that way. We tend to say, well, we have the system and you do your thing and we're all good. Instead of talking about, we enable all the IDX feeds, we enable many of the websites where the listings are promoted and leads come from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that we do. So there's a ton of potential in this area. And one of the things that was very interesting here, and this is I don't even know if this is real, Dave, but it's pretty darn close to what the averages showed. And to Dave's point, if you've been around a while, we've all heard, please don't level the playing field, right? We've heard those words more than we've ever cared to hear them. But what was very interesting this year is we heard well over 70% of agents and brokers throughout the country that we asked about this question said, yes, I want the MLS to help me generate business opportunity. I don't want to have to go pay third parties 35% of my commission. I don't want to have to pay thousands of dollars for mostly junk leads. I don't want all that stuff. Can you guys be my business partner in that way? Mm-hmm. So that level not playing field thing, of course, there's still brokers that feel that way, and everybody has to be sensitized. In your market, you may have them, but for the most part, even those largest brokers that sometimes felt that way have softened, because they recognize it's too expensive to work with other third parties, especially when you have ever declining commission structures. You can't give away 30 or 40% of your commission to another group. You just don't have that money anymore. So very interesting outcomes and some things that we can all work on together. We talked about multiple MLSs. So how significant is the market overlap? And you can also measure primary members versus secondary members. So what's the perception of the MLS for those that are with you all the time and versus those that are not? And then, of course, looking at, overlapping market disorder, most people are pretty aware where that disorder is coming from. But again, sometimes there can be some quantitative evidence to say, guys, I know we've tried this, we've hit the wall, but maybe it's time to go back at this again, because look what our customers are telling us. They really do want us to solve these problems. So it can create evidence for those types of collaborations as well. So it gives you lots of different things. All right, so we're going to jump over to you now, Dave. I've been talking way too much, and we want to hear from you because you went through this. You and your whole team went through this. We want to know what did you learn from these surveys? So even before we jump into that, I want to just stop for a minute and give you and your team some high fives. I have to tell you guys, I'm not going to give you all his numbers. Dave can if he wants, but I can't. But their team did very, very well. They scored very, very high on just about every factor. In fact, I think every factor that we measured. So, just from your perspective, Dave, what do you think is the secret to providing or leading an MLS that really does seem to do well with its customers?
Well, thank you, Marilyn. And yeah, you talk quickly and fast, but quantitatively, and always a joy to hear you. There's an element to it's all about the badge. For us, we show up every single day understanding that we potentially will not win the race today. But we show up with that attitude that, we have to work consistently and never take anything for granted. The worst thing, we got very, very high scores, folks. Some of the highest. It's very nice and nice to show our board that in 7 categories we were the leader in many of those categories. But more importantly is, why is that? Why is a third-party investment that we felt was important? I certainly would encourage any of you to do it, to measure what your strengths and weaknesses. We really looked at the report in helping us be successful because of what we in our self-assessments do for areas that we were weak in. And what we believe our success is attributed to is, of course, all of us can say that we emphasize customer service, and our training is fantastic, and data quality is spot on. And that is absolutely true. That is where it's not just the system. That is where we got some of our highest marks. But I will tell you that taking the time with a customer to talk to them a little bit longer than maybe one of your staff members has to, being yourself really pays off as well. I say, and to some of you on the call probably, you need to be yourself. And there's a reason why your board, your leaders, your colleagues put you in the position that you're in today. And that's because of you. It's not because they put you in the position they want you to be somebody else. And so what those perfect imperfections that you have, that you illustrate to your customer base, your participants, subscribers, the business partner, the affiliated companies that you work with, vendors, and being vulnerable sometimes, and not being perfect, and being open-minded to change, to being open-minded. I always use this analogy of I don't want to ever grow up to be that old guy, right, with the dirty glasses and no budging me. But you have to put that front of mind all the time. And so in order to do that, I think, and you did talk about it earlier, Marilyn, but you got customer service training, data quality. But if you're not responsive, if you're not constantly measuring, if you're not constantly leaning in and listening to what they're saying, in some cases, you can't do that from the office. You have to get out, you have to go and see these folks. We're going to emphasize more. It's an area that we believe that we can do better in broker outreach, but being attuned to what's going on. And here's why it's most important to do it now. The reason to do it now is because the business has become much more complex than it was just a few years ago. And they're looking for leadership in this very difficult world, and lots of landmines. And, maybe sometimes you have to be the lighthouse on the coast so they don't run their ship up on the rocks. But I would think it's kind of a core principle that we hold here, that, and I would say one other thing, we don't have 120 products. We have what we would consider best to show tools that our broker participants, our agents, have told us that they want and need every day. So what we do with that at MetroList is we actually do all of the training, all of the technical support, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They can call our tech support and get help on these products. Because quite honestly, they're not selling real estate all the time from 8 to 5 each day. It's on the weekends. It's their Monday and Tuesday, or their go days, or those weekends. And a lot of MLSs shut their doors on those days and don't provide that support on those days. If you do, I commend you. But Marilyn, I think that probably would sum it up kind of in a nutshell. And if anybody has any questions, if I miss a part, certainly throw something in the chat.
Well, and I'll say something, and Dave, I don't want to embarrass you, but I can tell you, because we know who all the best performers are. I can't tell all of you guys, right? You can tell each other, but I can't tell you. But I think it starts with that customer service. It actually starts with heart. It starts with someone like a Dave, and many of you that are on the call, that you know who you are, that you love your customers. You love what you do. You love your company. You love your customers. And you wake up every morning thinking, how can I love them more in a good way, right? If you treat it like a job and it's just a thing and a customer is just another task, It doesn't work nearly as well as when it comes from the top, which spreads to the board, which spreads to the staff, and everybody brings that attitude. So Dave, thanks for being one of the people with heart in our business. I appreciate that. Okay, so now let's jump over to the ideas we've talked about. Customer Experience Index provides you with peer perspective, right? Not, again, anonymized, right? We're not here to say one MLS is better than another. That's not our job. Our job is to help each one of you be the best you can be. But how has that helped you, or how valuable is it for you to have that peer perspective as you're looking at your scores?
Well, this one kind of, I would give you jazz hands as being one that excites me the most. You had a bunch of MLSs that were represented with their brands up on that screen, and many of those people I'm very proud to call my friends. And with my experience at CMLS, one of the big value takeaways and from reports like this really supports that practice is, we all think we're special, right? We're all special, and we're the best. No one's better than us, and we gave that up a long time ago because of how valuable it is to take the feedback from others who do outstanding jobs themselves. And so it's quite often that I will get a call from a CEO in South Carolina or up in Maine or Seattle or Texas, and I make those calls as well. And once you kind of discover that and get opportunities or maybe just excuses to pick up the phone and just like call somebody and go, I really haven't figured this out. What have you done? Or I heard something really cool that you're doing. Can you share? And vice versa. We are really elevating the industry. And, some of us have been in the business a very long time, and, not much excites us on the day-to-day. But what excites me with this, Marilyn, is the opportunity to work with others to improve the industry. We have all kinds of entities that are attacking our industry. I mean, you mentioned some of the stuff that lit the air out of the tires at your conference this week, right? Announcements, but it's up to us to keep this thing viable and successful, and really sharing with one another, and really looking. So I'll give you an example on our scores. We scored low. Our lowest score was on lead generation. But what was interesting was right on the heels of us doing the survey, we launched a complete lead generation platform. So we didn't have an opportunity to get it scored. And so Marilyn's group's going to come back in at the 6-month mark and like that summertime mark, and we're going to have that component in place. Our expectation is that our numbers should be coming up in that category, and very, very excited about it. And this is kind of a living thing for us because we do all these self-monitoring things and measuring constantly. But that one, and with respect to the CXI, is very important to us because it's kind of like this from outer space looking at us and then comparing us to the world of other MLSs. So quite interesting, very useful to get peer feedback.
Awesome. All right, so what have you learned overall from the WAV Your Customer Experience Index about your market or in general?
Well, I think I just mentioned one. The lead generation thing was an area. One of the others, and in fact, what you can do if you've done these, we did this. Actually, I'll just be very frank with you. I did. So when we first got the report, it was distributed. Everybody got a copy of it. We all looked at it. And I will say we suffer probably from something that happens to maybe some of you, but you read the report, you go, yeah, that's kind of cool, kind of feels good. And then you kind of set it down on that desk. And then, a couple weeks later, a couple pieces of paper, another magazine gets put on top of it, and that kind of thing. And then before you know it, you haven't done anything with some of the stuff. And so picking this up, preparing for this presentation, I went back and I read it again, probably for about the 5th time. It wasn't hidden forever, but went through it about the 5th time. And then there were like these things that like came popping out at me like, wow, this is really cool. So if you've done this, distribute it to your leadership team and then maybe ultimately your staff or departments, and say, hey guys, just read this thing. It's okay for you to comment on all the departments. You have a department that might be emphasized in here. Let's say it's the education department or something. If there's something that jumps out at you, put a little sticky note on it and let's get back together and let's like talk about it as a team and figure out how we can do better. I redistributed it to our executive team this morning with that exact ask. Because I went through it, I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. So I'll give you an example. In training, one of the things that your team noted was you guys do a great job in training. However, you could emphasize more on the product features versus how to use the product. And that was kind of one of those ones that kind of makes you think, you pause back and go, okay, it ties hand in hand with your change in philosophy from just standing up in the front of the room and droning on about how something works to going out and then looking at these products. And the vendors that you partner with are good examples of how you can approach this. But how is it that your brokers are using a particular product, and how is it that the MLS can teach them ways how they could use that to make money with that product? Like, what's a practical application of that when you would then take a trends product out and let's say you're walking a neighborhood and you want to, say, hey, here's what's going on in your neighborhood. What is it that you can take away with that tool and teach the brokers in your market how they could actually make money with it, or how they could actually describe it in a way that would excite their agents that, they're in the right place. So that's, those little nuggets are sprinkled all the way through. And while you as a, whatever position you're in at your MLS may pick up in one area, you'll have others within your business that might pick up other things in other areas, or even volunteer leadership. Some of you might be small where you got MLS committees or boards. We certainly distributed it to our board and our MLS group. And they were, I guess it's one of those things you could probably over time. And I will just end with this on this particular question, Marilyn. This is not the stopping point. And Marilyn, in our pre-call, said something. This is the starting point. This is a place where you can take feedback from an entity, which then gets compared to other MLSs, which give you an opportunity to learn from it. And it's not going to break your bank, but the information it provides. I was feeling, Marilyn, like you were underselling it earlier. I know you weren't doing that. My mind was like, stop that. You weren't doing that. This is valuable stuff. And it's been valuable from that perspective.
Well, you bring up something about getting brokers involved with this and getting your, thinking about how do you talk about the technology in a way that actually resonates more. And one of the things that we asked this past year was we asked brokers only, how likely or how much have you personally taken technology training? How much have you encouraged your managers to take technology training from the MLS? And how much have you encouraged your agents to take training from the MLS? And the answer pretty much was no, unfortunately, right? So the idea that you're talking about reaching out and saying, how do we engage this as a partnership with brokers? If we know what they're struggling with, I guarantee that just about everyone on the call has got something in one piece or more of your technologies that can help with that problem, right? So we can package training to things that actually matter to brokers and ideally engage them to encourage their agents to take it because it's helping them solve a problem that they're trying to solve already. So you really can become a much better partner when you know what are the messages they're trying to drive home, because we do so many things in MLSs. We can give you lead gen, lead cultivation, customer for life, you name it, we can give it to you, right? But which ones are important to your customer base, and then how do you deliver that? So
yeah, and some secret sauce that was impacted by the whole health crisis with COVID. One of the number one ways to you will not get the experienced agent to come take your training unless it's online, typically. The newbie is the one who needs it. That's the one that needs the on-ramp and assistance. And one of the things that we're able to do that we were somewhat restricted from doing was doing the in-office training. It makes the broker look good. You're delivering value by bringing agents into the office. you're delivering value by getting the interaction between the veteran agent who will attend. If it's at the office, I'll come. And then the person who just got their license. So you get that interaction. Brokers love that. And then the large venue trainings, the ones where you call into the association and we're going to buy lunch and there's going to be, several hundred of you there. And again, it might be 50 for some, it might be 1,000 for others, but you get large venue training going on. And that is invaluable in getting that feedback and really hitting it with all cylinders with respect. And again, it's the responsiveness thing. It's going back to the big R. You're able to respond when you have the knowledge, and you're all a bunch of professional troubleshooters. I know you. This is in your blood. You love what you do. And I would also say, Marilyn, there's a definite distinction, and I talk about this with our staff. Some of them are in the business because it's just the job. The ones that excel, that are outstanding, that are just killing it, are ones that love what they do every single day. And they love their colleagues, the national people, the business partners that you deal with, the local realtors. There's no other business you would be in because you have the heart for it. So anyway, that would be rounding that out as a secret, not so secret. I'm sure all of you are aware of that.
Okay, so we kind of spilled the beans that you got a lot of these awards because you're doing a really good job. You got lots of gold stars on your forehead, Dave. How did your board and your staff respond when they saw how good that you guys are?
They were very, I won't say that we impress on them aggressively to be good in all areas, but in some cases, guys, when they're in the office or working remotely, we support both. But we really work on emphasizing treating people in a good way and spending a little extra time with them, whether that's in compliance calls, which inherently are not easy to take. They don't want to call about a speeding ticket, that kind of thing. But you just have to understand that sometimes staff doesn't get the kudos and recognition that they need. It's not like they worked for 6 months on a software program or introducing a new product and they can turn around and they can look at that really cool little building that they just built. There's like nothing physical that they can touch. And you try to give them awards, obviously you might recognize them with a bonus in the fall or whatever, Christmas time, whatever you might do. But then when they get to see these awards that they earned and then spend time with them illustrating why it is that they learned, that is part of the process of sharing the CXI report with them and then talking to them about it and the why. It gives them purpose. The key to a successful staff member, this ties directly into, and that is them knowing their why. If they don't know the purpose of why it is or what they're contributing to your business and why they come to work every day, you're missing a huge opportunity. And this gives you an opportunity to show them, hey, that work that you do in customer service or tech support, you answer all those calls, but here's what the people that are calling you are saying about you. That's totally invaluable. And that really excites them about being part of the company. That's, the company's not great because they have just a great leader. The company is great because they have a great team and collection of, it's a village. And, it's the whole adage, it takes a village. It does. Yeah. I was out of the office for 3 weeks in March. Had nothing to worry about when I came back other than my own pile of stuff I can't get out from under right now. But the reality of it is, you can't do that without having a good team at home. And that's what we worked on. And this was incredible that we scored. I was expecting that we would get something, but I didn't really have any clue that we would get high ranking awards in all these categories.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it was inspirational and I mean, almost a retention tool at some level. We didn't think about it that way, right? We were just trying to measure greatness, but that's even better, right? So the board gets excited, but the staff just gets to have some pride, which is it is, these are not easy jobs. We know it, and they're getting tougher every day. So it's a little bit of a pat on the back when mostly what you hear are the three people that are not happy. It's great to have that. So I'm glad to hear that it worked that way.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
what do you think you'll learn in your second year? What are you going to try to learn, do you think?
Well, I'm excited about this one, and it's because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you're going to pose some different questions because your program's evolving,
Right.
and it's going to be thought provoking. There's many venues and platforms where you're challenged to think outside the box. I think that I think that to come back and remeasure all the areas that we have is certainly valuable. But then what Marilyn and her team have been doing is they've been doing check-ins with us, like, how are you using the data and what's it being developed for? And I would say one of the areas that's of particular interest to us is the big data component.
Mhm.
We used to keep affiliates out of the MLS because they worked for a title company or a lender, and they were using the data to pick off who the top producing agents were. So you somewhat alluded to, something that the brokers didn't like, that their agents would be canvassed by a data feed that they'd be getting from the MLS. But ultimately, the MLS has a way of utilizing statistics to identify needs of the broker and the agent, and then delivering on them before they ask. So sharing this stuff with Marilyn and how we're utilizing it, I would expect to learn later this year in the second half, Marilyn, based on feedback we've given you. I know that you and Jason and your team are going to come up with a bunch of gotcha questions, which will pull more yield, if you will, out of an MLS and how they can do better. Again, I fully at Metrolist, we believe in that collaboration with MLSs nationwide. It is a big component of us that we like sharing and learning from one another. So that would be it. I think that's the bottom line is the continued collaboration amongst MLSs and more participating. Hopefully the sampling will be bigger, and then the scores will continue to reflect what you're excelling in.
Perfect. Well, speaking of what's next, just a quick update for those that are in the program or not. So we did this with some and not with all of you last year. So it goes exactly what Dave is saying, right? So we want to get the board of directors engaged with this. And I love your idea of giving them sticky notes so they can come back and highlight things they want you guys to talk about. We did several staff brainstorms where we let them, as Dave said, ingest it all, think about it, and then work together as a group to try to brainstorm what are some ways that we can move the needle. So this whole program is designed to elevate, right? It's really to elevate individual MLSs in the entire industry. And so wherever WAV Group can come to help do that, that's really what drives us, right? That we're the impact driven type of consulting firm. We want us to, at the end of the day, we walk out of this industry to say we did something that made it just a little bit better and helped all of us, right? So that's one component. And then these best practices sharing, this I think is going to be gold. We've done one so far, and it was fascinating to see, so like just throw out a topic about, okay, training. Dave, tell me all the great stuff, the things you like best about what you do in training and what you think works. KB, what do you think? Just throw it around to a bunch of different people. The energy in the room for things like that is so much fun, but people can walk away literally with pages of notes of ideas of things, right? So, that's to me where exactly what you said, Dave. You just buy this and throw it on a desk and it looks pretty. It's a little pretty report. Who cares? That's not what this is about. This is about trying to help every single MLS get excited about being better, and by learning how to be better from each other, because we've got all the, the best answers. And then waves of change can be part of this. So we do a quarterly webinar that we share research that we've done. We're doing more and more consumer research. We're getting a lot of requests for like, what's really going on in the consumer's head these days. So we're doing more of that type of work. Then of course we look at emerging trends and things that we're seeing. One of the things where we have an advantage, I think, at WAV Group is because we work around the entire industry. We work with brokers. Like I'm here at a broker conference today. I was at Clarity last week, right? Like we cross fertilize a lot. And so we can bring emerging trends that if you're only in one part of the industry, you may not see as much as we can see. And we're lucky to be in a lot of the sort of closed door meetings where people say what they really think, right? So we get some really good insights on ways to help MLSs better serve brokers and vice versa. So that's a component of this. You can participate in that, and your brokers can be part of it. It's again, all of this is designed to help us keep thinking and keep moving forward. Because if we don't do that, someone else is going to come and sideswipe us. And that's what we're all really worried about at the end of the day, right? And then of course, we're going to keep our badges going. We'll have a whole new group of them for next year, and hopefully people will continue to get more and more. So yeah, so we'd love to have everybody that's on the call join us, join Dave. The more the merrier, the more that we have, the more markets we have with, a more variety that we have, the more insight that we can start to gather from one another, and the more patterns that we can start to see, which will help every one of us. That's the goal, is to make every MLS better at the end of the day. So if any of you guys would love to learn more about this, just drop on your name in the comment box, or you can just drop a line to me at Marilyn at WAV Group, and we'll be happy to tell you more about it. Okay, any questions from anybody, or Dave, anything else that you'd like to offer up before we go?
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Marilyn, for the opportunity to again share. It is very fulfilling and rewarding to be able to have colleagues that are friends through that opportunity, through sessions like this. We found the index incredibly valuable for us. I think you will for you as well. I want to thank you, Marilyn, for doing it, because there's not a lot of opportunities for a consulting entity to do something like this that are available to us as MLSs. So it really fulfills a need that we had, that we felt that we could participate in. So thank you. I do want to thank you for that.
We're honored to work with you, Dave, and all of our other MLS colleagues. So thank you so much. We'll do whatever we can do to help everybody be better, and to be here for as long as we still want to keep working. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much. And Deborah, I saw your note. We'll get your proposal and we'll go from there. Have a wonderful day. If anybody has any other questions, you can just reach out, Marilyn at WAV Group, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye.